Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Games New and Old. I am David Rodriguez here with another episode of the Mic Drop, where I interview someone from the gaming world and then we debate a not too controversial topic. And today, my guest is Ryan from MistaRau Gaming. How you doing, Ryan?
Hey, everybody. Thanks, David, for having me on. This is awesome. Thank you very much.
I've been excited about this. We have been trying to get this scheduled for a bit, and just one thing after another got between
Yep.
just regular adult schedule issues, and then you had a massive power out, and
Yep.
I don't know. There's been a never-ending flow of problems, but we made it. We got
But
here.
we made it. It's like the perpetual trying to schedule a D&D night and be like, is everybody good 8 weeks from now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then the time we have to get that all worked out. There's just so many things, and
Mhm.
you're a little bit later in the day over there than I am, so that can affect
Yeah.
it too. Although you're a
It,
night
it it
owl,
works
right?
out. But it works out. I'm a bit of a night owl. I stay up quite
Yeah.
late most of the time anyways. Yeah, cuz right now the time difference is only just an hour for us, which is okay, but as soon as November hits here, then we're like a 2-hour difference.
Yeah, I'm glad I got you in before then because that could be kinda tough. Man, it's hard to get in here, like, too early because I gotta get dinner and all other stuff, and then if it's I'm just I naturally, I would be a night owl too, but, my work kinda keeps me from actually doing that.
Mm.
But if I'm ever
Yep.
rich and just, like, unemployed, I'll probably be asleep most of the daylight hours, so
Gotta hit the Powerball.
yeah, there you go. I've tried, I just it's like most games, I don't win, so, um, that's okay. So you have, as I said at the top, you have your own video channel, Mr.
Mhm.
Rau Gaming. Before I
Yeah.
get into all that, though, I have a question for you
Sure.
because up until recently, it was Mr. Rau's gaming rants and reviews, and we've
Yes.
lost we've lost the rants. Did something happen where you're just a happier person and nothing bothers you anymore?
I get that one a lot and everything, and I just felt like when I originally started rants and reviews, I thought I had a lot of pent-up angst towards lots of different things in the gaming hobby, and there was things that were bugging me, and then I got it all out of me, and then I'm like, "Oh, wow, I can't keep up this pace of just, perpetually trying to nitpick at different topics across the way." And I'm overall, you started to get to know me, I'm overall kind of a nice guy. I'm not really, meant to go out and, be mean and start up controversial, topics and everything like that. And then plus, it was also the pre-recording and editing of the videos that was starting to become the bothersome piece, which is now why I've switched over to doing, live video over on this YouTube land thingamajigger.
Well, that's awesome, and I have to say that you are a far more brave person than I am. The idea of streaming absolutely terrifies me to the core of my being. Like, are you comfortable? Do you feel comfortable doing that when you're actually
Do
live and
it You know what? It hasn't caught me off guard yet. So far, everybody that participates in the chat and everything have all been, super awesome and wonderful and accepting of one another. Um, it hasn't scared me yet. I'm a teacher by trade, so just being able just to talk off the cuff and stir up conversations and everything like that is kind of this comes natural to me, and I don't know. Plus, I just like I like the idea of doing everything in one shot, no editing. If I'm gonna make goofs, oh well, it doesn't bother me at all really anymore. So so I just thought, you know what, let's just do it live. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, oh well, I'll go back to trying to schedule editing time and whatnot with our with a young family and everything. How do content creators with young families do it?
yeah,
That's the ultimate, that's the golden question.
right. See, I'd be afraid. Well, I mean, there's a few things that would that scare me off of that idea. Is one, people will realize how bad a speaker I am when I cannot edit out all the ums and long pauses and like forgetting a simple word like what is that animal that meows again? Oh, what is that? Um, That's an issue, and then invariably, I'm surprised it hasn't happened on any of these interviews, but when we're doing our other videos, at least one of the kids will suddenly, like, walk in and start asking a question about something, and it's like, "This is great. I'm sure all the streamers needed to know that you needed to go to the bathroom. Like that's
See,
fantastic. So
in my mind, that's awesome live TV right
it
there.
would be. It
Like,
would be.
it's awesome. It's entertaining. It's funny in the moment. People will talk about it later and like, hey, join this guy's stream. Every now and then the guy's kid comes in and asks to go to the bathroom. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it would absolutely have. Maybe that's my niche. Maybe that's what I'm missing. Maybe I'd boost my viewers by thousands if I could just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll leave one in one day. We'll see what happens.
Random kid poop jokes and stuff like that.
Oh God, there's so many, and like some of them aren't even really jokes. They're just saying poop, and that's exciting enough. I I'd say I don't get it, but I was probably the same when I was a kid. I don't remember,
Mhm.
but yeah.
Right.
Uh, so you do a lot of live plays.
Mhm.
Now, when you do that, are they games that you're already really familiar with, or are you like trying to learn them as you're because that terrifies me even more if you're
So
trying to learn
some
them
of
while you're
them
streaming.
Yeah, so some of them have been, games that I've known. My last one that I just did, the Star Wars Clone Wars Pandemic game, I had only just played it for the very first time the night before because I realized I hadn't played it yet. Twitter had voted that that's the game that they wanted me to stream. I was like, I actually still have no idea what the actual differences between this game and Pandemic are. I should actually try it ahead of time because that's would make for awesome live videos. Me sitting there reading the rule book verbatim while I'm trying to play. I even did end up having to look at the rule book a few times during that
Right.
play. Luckily, I was already started being familiar with it. I try to be familiar with the game a little bit, but some of them have been like my first plays of the game. Like we did Barrage that one night with
Hmm.
Tim and Riley, and I hadn't played Barrage. I just only watched the few reels videos. I had played Barrage, but it was been years
Right.
that I had played it. But I've always tried to be a little bit familiar. Because like I said, just me fumbling right. I don't know if that would make good TV or video or everything. It's like everybody just chat amongst yourselves in the chat while I read 10 pages of rules before I start getting going here because I really have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
I don't, so I try.
Yeah, I'd be terrified because like I know that if I have people watch that and I mess up a rule, I'm gonna hear about it and I'm gonna be
Hmm.
kicking. I just know me, I'll be kicking myself forever if I do that. I can't. It's tough, but
Yep.
so I think you're just incredibly super brave to take that particular path personally.
You call it brave, I call it crazy. It's one of the two, I guess, or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I did get a one video. What was it? One of my first ones. I believe it was the Dark Souls card game.
Mhm.
And I had played it a few times and okay, I was very familiar with it. But then we had someone in the comments section after the video on demand was released and spouted off like an essay of all the things that
Oh
I
my
did
gosh.
wrong. And I was
Oh
like,
no.
oh, okay, that was lovely. Thank you for pointing all that out. You could have done it in a little more subtle way. You didn't have to post an essay of all of the did you watch? I said, thank you for watching all of the video and pointing out everything that you did.
Right.
Got to get those watch hours up.
Yeah. See, some of those people should probably be teachers. They'd be good at grading papers. They figure out all the problems right away. Although maybe I don't know, maybe that isn't actually a good thing. I'm not sure, but they could at least be good at like grading papers. Maybe not the teaching part. I don't know, but they're good at looking for errors.
They're very good at analyzing the nitpicky details. I'm like, oh, by the way, that one card actually did have an attack symbol on it, so you couldn't discard it. I'm like, oh, whoops. Okay, whatever. I
Yeah.
still lost the game. It didn't benefit me.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Like doesn't matter. Like my wife always calls me a cheater because I'll teach the rules and then it's as soon as I've explained them, it's like they've filtered out of my brain, and so I'll forget something really basic, and she'll be like, "Hey, you're not supposed to do that." I'll be like, "Oh, damn it!" And she calls me a cheater, but then she still stomps me into the dirt. So who cares? I mean,
Which is
you know,
funny because my wife also calls me a cheater because she always says, "Oh, by the way, you didn't leave you forgot to mention that detail when you were
right?
doing your teach. Like
Hmm.
you said it in general, but oh, I could actually put like two workers on that spot. You just said I can just put worker on that spot." I'm like, "Oh, did I miss the S? I'm sorry."
Yeah, I get stuff like that too. It's like, man, I'm trying to hit every rule, but sometimes it's hard to do it. Oh god, it's tough.
I said my
So,
winning percentage against my wife is so low at this point that it's like
oh man,
doesn't matter. I need every advantage I can get.
yeah, I know. Me too. I think I should find out like if there's a game with different player powers. I got to figure out which one is the toughest one and give myself that so I have a hope against my wife because otherwise, no. I know because we've played several games live over Board
Mhm.
Game Arena. It's you, um, uh, Tim from Board Game Hot Takes, and Riley from the Board Game Community Show. And one time, I think it was probably the first time, we were joking about having the wives take our significant others all take our
Yes.
spot. And like I have no idea what kind of gamer Tim's wife or Riley's wife is, but now I really want to see my wife play against yours because if yours beats you and mine beats like just about anybody, I have a feeling they would have a fierce competition, whatever they played. So,
That would be amazing. My wife is way too shy and timid
oh
to
really?
do anything of this sort. I had mentioned it, and she'd be like, "You forced me to do that, and you're like on the couch for like a good period of time."
Wow. Okay,
She's like,
well,
she's way like the personalities, like that we couldn't be farther opposite personalities than than we actually are. So eccentric I am, like I said, doing live videos and blah blah blah. My wife is just like, nope, it needs to be planned out perfectly, and no one else needs to be around.
that's funny. Well, I see a lot of couples that are like that, where you have like this just like polar opposite,
Mm.
general personalities. But I think that's what makes them work a lot of the time is two
Oh,
people that are too like outgoing and stuff can kind of like butt heads a little more. I think so.
mm-hmm. I can see it. Yep.
Yeah. So you have a giant wall of games behind you. I have a giant wall of games behind me. How did this start for you, Ryan? How did you get to the point where you're buying these games and playing them?
So I guess I've been in the hobby for gee willikers. What was it? Probably I'm probably been about what's it two? Yeah, probably about close to 10 years at this
Hmm.
point. And it all really started, I have a friend, his name is Ian. I've mentioned him a bunch of times on my channel, and when I used to do the Cardboard Conjecture podcast with my friend Norm quite regularly, it was always the ongoing joke that um, Ian was my pusher into the board game hobby,
Yep.
using that analogy. And he and my wife were friends on an ultimate frisbee team for a
Oh
while
wow.
before I had met my now wife, and she invited me to a game night. And I was like, oh gosh, I was a video gamer through and through
Mm.
before that. And I'm like, oh, a game night? Like, we're going to sit around and play like Monopoly and Yahtzee and all these other things that I had an idea of what gaming was at that point. And I was like, okay, I'll entertain it. And then he brought out this game called Alhambra at that time.
Okay.
And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my goodness, what is going on in this thing?" There's cards and everything. There's like some color, and there is like, what? You have to collect things and cash them in for points, or we're auctioning. What is going on? And my mind like blew up. It exploded. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And he's like, "Yeah, I have like a good collection of games now." I'm like, "Wait. There's more than one of these things out there?" And then I went down the rabbit hole and I started like, "Oh, what other games do you enjoy?" And then he started talking about like Carcassonne and Catan and Lords of Waterdeep and all these things. And then there was Will Wheaton's tabletop at that time. And I was like, holy smokes, this is a whole bigger hobby than I ever actually could imagine. And so I started watching tabletop, Will Wheaton's, and I started buying everything that he was like playing and suggesting. And like I think a lot of people around that time were doing. And then I found out that we had a couple game stores here in Saskatoon. I was like, wow, this is like a store, like just a store, and that's all you. This is all you sell is just like these games and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay. And then I started off with a small little bookshelf, and then games grew off of that one. And then I had to get two bookshelves. And
Right.
then I had to get another one that's stacked on top, but it didn't really work. So I had to get a bigger bookshelf. And now I have a whole room in my house that's dedicated. to holding and storing all these games, which is actually my wife's. This is actually my wife's work studio for her job, and I tear everything down. I tear all her stuff down and hooked up all my stuff up whenever I do something like this, or I do my live streams or anything like that. She always gets jokes from her coworkers when they're on meetings because she's talking and they're all like, what's
I
back
bet.
there? What's back there? Can you tell your husband to kind of like rotate them every now and then so we can see all the other different games? Because I have them front facing here, but there's actually games behind those games as well that we kind of rotate every now and
Right.
then.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
so
that's
that's the long-winded version of that particular story, and then I just kinda like, my collection is now what did we collect? Like, it's probably like 4 times the size of Ian's
right.
collection. He keeps a very moderate, very curated, collection of games. He's never
Mm,
sold or gotten rid of a game. Like, if a game comes into his collection, it has to, like, be like spot on the perfect game for him and his
right.
situations where I'm like, I'm bringing games in, I'm selling games, I'm trading games, I'm doing everything like that all the time.
That's great. I have trouble getting rid of stuff too. I'm gonna get rid of at least some. It's gonna be like a small dent in the whole thing soon. But I the way you display your games, I actually really like that. I think it's a lot more striking than having the side showing. Let me
Mhm.
ask you this though, like if you're looking for a game that is not facing out like that, like how do you know where to find it? Do you have to like look behind all the games or do you just
Yep.
have that kind of memory? Oh my gosh.
No, I don't have the memory. I'm like, what's behind this one again? And then peek back. Oh, right. And then I go, well, what's behind this one? Did I have some sort of theme or structure? Nope, I sure did not. Or anything like, oh yeah,
Okay.
that the if this was like that D&D alignment chart here, like it's like chaotic evil back there. There's like no rhyme or reason. Some are laying sideways, some are like laying flat, some are standing up, some are big games, little games. Maybe some of them are like by publisher. No, no, not really.
That's great. I thought about doing it because I keep seeing yours. I'm like, I should really do that. And I might yet do that because I do think it looks really nice, but I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I'll go insane trying to find stuff or what, but
Yeah, and I got the idea from there was a podcast in Canada here. They were called Friday Night Games,
mm,
and they had done a segment where they were talking about how they organize their games collection. And one of them mentioned that they do this, the front facing, and there's a whole bunch of games backwards. And my original way that I wanted to do this was that any game that's in the front, that is a game that needs to get played now. And then when that
okay.
game gets played, it goes to like the back of the shelf and then something else
Oh,
moves forward. I have done a very poor job of doing that mentality. Everything. I just
right.
kind of like I put things in the front that look cool and they have like
Hmm.
nice art on the front of the box, kind of like displaying it as a nice big piece of art.
Right.
And then I have to find out whatever's behind there.
Well, as far as visually, it's well worth it. I think. I don't know about anything else, but yeah, it's tough though because some of the boxes are a little bit longer now, like depending on the game you get, and you won't be able to stick anything in front of them. And
Oh
oh
gosh.
man,
Yeah. I might if I may, I'm just gonna do
yep,
this because I
go for
have
it.
the whole like top shelf that are like the big
Oh
games. They're
yeah,
like the big games that don't fit in like one of the Kalex whatever they are, the 30 by 30 um cubes and everything. So the big box games are up top that don't fit inside the cubes.
that's awesome. Well, that's probably what I'd have to do too, I guess. Um, yeah, I've got a few. I'll do the same thing. I haven't like
Mm,
finalized my setup here, but I've got like a few really big ones that just are. If I slid them on the shelf, they'd look really stupid because they'd be sticking like out a ways, and it's just not doesn't make
yeah.
sense. But
Yeah.
so I was trying to remember. Am I right in remembering that you're a math teacher?
I am, yeah. I'm a high school math teacher, and I mainly teach in the grades 11 and 12, pre-calculus and calculus areas.
Okay, so I'm wondering, and this is going to be a tough question for me to figure out how to word to ask. So bear with me on this, okay? Um,
Got it.
so do you think? that games that have like a sort of heavy mathematical bent behind them, behind like the strategies or mechanics or whatever, are more appealing to you? Like, does that like
Hmm.
click in with you better, or is that not the case?
Um, that's really good. I do tend to now if you were to look at my top games of all time, I wouldn't say that they have like a strong mathematical background or theme
Mm.
or probably there was a lot of mathematics that went into the
Oh
design
yeah,
process. I haven't dabbled in anything, but I am a sucker for a really, really good economic simulation style of game. I don't know what it is. I have friends that tell me that I should have like pursued like business or economics in some sense because I have some sort of pull
right.
towards that area. So like there's a game out there. It's called Arkwright. I don't know if you've
Okay,
heard of this
I've
game
I've
Arkwright.
heard of it. I don't know too much about it, but
Yeah, it's got a bit of a economic simulation by it, but it's like all like setting the prices and getting the demand, like trying to get the demand of your goods and the setting of the prices just right so that people will buy your goods, but you still make something, but you don't make nothing. Same thing with a game like Food Chain Magnate is
right.
another game that really resonates with me. I'm terrible at the game, but I love the game. I love the puzzle of it. And even though my businesses sometimes tank when I play that one, but I gravitate towards them for some odd reason.
Mhm.
They do stick with me. So whether or not I'm like because I'm a math teacher, that's why I like them. I do like board games because I am in that mindset of things have like an order and a structure to them, and being able like to follow a recipe and being able to convert everything into points and stuff like that, that stuff really resonates with me. And like just the pure design, I don't know how to explain it. My brain works on different levels than other people's sometimes, and
Mhm.
I don't know, I just like it. I just like the process
Right.
and the being like the algorithms. That's the word I'm actually really looking for, is like the algorithms behind different actions and movements and being able to see the flow and the process. And one thing leads to another. I get a real big satisfaction out of games that can pull off those things very well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does it bother you if a game is very, like, sandboxy? Do you like that, or has that become too chaotic for you?
Oh gosh, I love games that are very like open world and
Okay.
everything, like, because I was like I said, I was a video gamer way back, and like
Mm.
I don't know how many hundreds of hours I poured into like the Elder Scrolls like Skyrim,
Mhm.
or even games like Borderlands. How many times I just hours just exploring things and upgrading things and just being able to level up a character. And oh my goodness. So games that are like big and open and like that, I love them to bits and pieces.
Yeah, I do
I'm a
too. I
bit
was
of
just
an
curious.
I'm a bit of an omni gamer,
Yeah.
so there's very little chance that there is a game that I will not like when I
Mhm.
actually play it. I'll appreciate what it does and what it's doing differently. Party games, I'm still a fan of very much party games and solo games, and oh my gosh, yeah, so many different types of games.
Well, I think that's the way to be. So with your excitement over, like, the heavy economic games, is there one that you've played that you'd say is your favorite of those?
That's my favorite. Just got over here. I don't think that there's one like that that's my absolute favorite. Um, Arkwright does jump out at me as like one that does it really, really well. Though
Mm.
there is a game out there that I'm pretty sure I would absolutely adore and it probably would jump near the top. It's called Container. I don't know if you've
Okay.
heard of this game called Container.
I think
It's
I've
a
heard of it.
pure economic simulation of, yeah, just buy high, sell low, set your price so that you people are having to use your boats to certain. I can't even explain what it is because I actually haven't played it myself,
Mm.
but I really, really, really wanna play it. And right now, I believe it is out of print, which
Oh,
makes it harder
bummer.
for me to try to find. But I do think my friend Ian does own it, and it's one of those games that you have to have like the full player count to get that real
Okay.
experience out of it. So one time I have to try to play it with him if we have like the full, like, I think it's 5 players that really makes the game shine.
Yeah, some games really benefit from having a lot of like competition coming from a lot of different places, like they're like some of them you can play one-on-one, right? But it's I don't know, it just kind of pales in comparison to when you have all these different minds, attacking things
Mhm.
differently. Like so I could kind of understand that. Do you are you able to or have you ever brought gaming into your classroom in any way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a few good probability simulations that I use when I do my probability, talks, like a game like Can't Stop. I have multiple copies of that one that I bring in just because of the dice distribution when you roll dice. And that one does it a little bit differently because you have to roll 4 dice, and then you have to make up the pairs. But
Okay.
it still has that track that has, hey, the 7 is the most common, and then it goes 6s and 8s, and it kind of branches down that probability curve that we study so frequently in high school mathematics. And then there's other games like For Sale. Have you heard of the
Mhm.
game For Sale?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's a really good one that I bring in when I talk about budgets and budgeting, because you start with a certain amount of money in that game, and you have to buy properties. And then that's one phase of the game is you have to use your money and you bid and auction for properties. And then the second phase of the game is you have to sell your properties for money checks. And the whole big crux of the game is, can I sell this property for more than what I had actually paid for it? And plus, did I budget my money really well in that first phase? Because and it plays quick, and it plays in like 15 minutes, because
Oh
like
wow,
the
that's
complete
nice.
is the complete process, and it plays with up to, I believe it's 6 players. So
Oh
I have
wow.
a few
Good.
copies to get, so I have a whole classroom set so that I can get all these groups going and on it, and they really, really enjoy that one.
Well, that's cool. I wish this stuff had been around when I was a student because um I was not a great student when it came to math classes, especially. So having those kind of things to help, put it in like an actual context, I think is fantastic.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would imagine a lot of students really benefit from that sort of thing.
I really hope so too, and I hope sometime I bring them, introduce them to the gaming hobby as well. There's games that I bring in just for a pure simulation, and I don't actually get the kids to play them.
Mhm.
Again, with probability, I bring in the Quacks of Quedlinburg with the whole drawing the things out of the bags. And as soon as I pull some things out, now I can calculate the probability of what's left in the bag. And what's that risk reward style of thinking? And they were like, so I can actually, and afterwards, like, any questions on the probability? And the cans go up, where can I buy this game? And I'm like, yes,
That's awesome.
perfect.
Yeah. Turn them into gamers, Ryan. That's awesome.
And even
Yeah,
the
I know.
whole thing too, like how many ways can a game be how many different ways can a game be set up to create
Right,
that, what's commonly, I use the term infinite replayability, but there's actually a finite number of ways that this game can be set up.
right.
But you're not going to play this game 10,000 plus times.
No. Yeah,
So
I mean,
every game will feel different.
yeah, I mean, you get enough variety in there, and it's like, yeah, there's of course a limit, but you will not get there in your lifetime, even even if you do nothing but play the game back to back over and over again,
Yeah.
which
I,
is great.
which is a funny thing because I believe it was Tim, or it was the Board Game Hot Takes podcast. They were talking about the score tracker versus the score pads,
Oh,
and
right, right.
how people are talking about, well, I don't like the score pads because what if I run out? You're never gonna run out of score
No,
pads unless if that is the game that's the only game you're gonna play for the rest of your life.
yeah. Or,
You're not
when
gonna
you get
run
to
out
the
of
last
score pads.
one, just photocopy it. You'll be fine. Or the website for the company probably has ones you can print out if you need to, but
Yeah,
you probably
absolutely.
won't. Yeah, I know. I used to worry about that too, and then it's like, really, it's so hard for me to get games back to the table after a certain point that come on, it's never gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yep.
Although I will say,
Absolutely.
I say this because I think people should go check out the Board Game Hot Takes podcast. But when Tim said that he just takes those score sheets and chucks them in the trash, like
Oh
first
my
thing,
gosh.
what you monster, Tim, you monster.
That was my
I
comment
love
on
you, Tim.
Twitter. You monster. Where are the memories? Where's the reflection on what happened in that game last time? Oh, right. Remember when I did this? And then everybody like, okay, that's what I'm going to do this game now.
Right? I was like, he has to be joking. He's gonna say he's joking, and he doesn't do that, right? He's gonna say that. He at least didn't say it. Maybe he means it, but I don't know. I'm very concerned.
I don't know.
But
He's pretty set in his ways. He has a pretty like hate on for Marvel United that he hasn't backtracked on. I think
yeah,
at this point, he's full so far into the deep end that he just can't get on. He probably actually does like the game now, but he can't say it anymore just due to
yeah,
pure character.
that's I think that might be right. Like if he starts feeling like he's liking the game in the middle of a play, he's probably gonna walk off and just never. He's gonna put that. We're talking about poor Tim. He's not here to defend himself. Um, I feel like he has it coming because he, much like everyone else, always beats me in the games that we play. But you know, sorry, Tim. You know,
Sorry, Tim. It just naturally that speaks volumes of your podcast that people
yep,
that aren't even on your podcast are still talking about your podcast.
yeah. That should have been our debate topic. Like Tim, yes or no? Like that should have been. We could have. That might have gone on a while. I don't know. There's a
Do we
lot
have
to
enough
say.
time in the evening?
Tim, if you're watching, I really do think you're fantastic. I'm just joking around,
I
but
was going to say I would not have enough time to express my love
yeah,
for Tim.
it would legitimately be hard to choose the no side. Like no, Tim. No, I don't know. That would be tough to do it in any serious way for sure. Because man, anyway, enough about
Beautiful.
the. I should make this channel all about talking about Tim. That'd be great. That'd be kind of
All
creepy.
about Tim.
It'd
It's
be
like
real, real
everybody loves
creepy.
Raymond. Everybody loves Tim.
There we go. Oh my gosh. So, how many how many games would you say you play in a week?
In a week, now that I have the live stream going twice a week, I at
Mm,
least two.
yeah, there you go.
At least 2 games a week. It's been harder recently to get my gaming in during a week. My both my kids are now school age. I have my oldest is in grade 2, my youngest is in kindergarten, and so we've been doing lots of like reading practice in the evenings and lots of math practice in the evenings, and that usually just leaves both my wife and I drained. And
Yeah,
it's probably if we are going to play a game, it's going to be something very light and quick, or it's just going to be us crash on the couch, put on a half an hour TV sitcom, and be like, okay, after this is done, we're definitely going to bed.
yeah. I
Sometimes.
wanna find out how these people who, have families and jobs, I presume, are like, "Oh, yeah, I played 50 games this week." Like, "W what?" Like, how? I just don't I mean, I'm
Yeah.
envious. I'm envious of what it is, but I don't
Weekends
understand.
weekends are more of our jam. We'll try to get in some games, maybe even the afternoon, incorporate the kids into them. But I'm gonna be saying I'm ranging between, like, maybe 2 5 would be stretching, getting up to
Mhm.
about 5 different, games
Right.
played in a week. That's the high end. The minimum is the 2 on the live streams.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, I try to get in as many as I can, and every once in a while I'll have a week that just, like, really spikes for whatever bizarre set of
Mhm,
circumstances, but usually it's 1 or 2, different ones, maybe probably 2, but, like, I'm always focused on, the next review and learning it,
mhm.
so I was trying to think, like, if you were trying to, like, focus on your whatever your next streams are to make sure that you're ready too, like, that's it's part of your
I
game time.
part of the background, I'll give you some background information here on the live streams, exclusive content. That if I'm gonna run into that point, I do have a couple games in my back pocket that I just know really, really well that would work
Right.
really good for a live stream. I'm
Mhm.
gonna be talking about, like, I could throw down scenario of Marvel Champions probably at the snap of a fingers, and I could live stream
Right.
that, and some people will find that interesting, or I could just set up a game of Marvel United, and it'll just be ready to go, or even Arkham Horror. I can set up a scenario, and we could just go like that. So that's my back pocket. If you see some Marvel champions pop up every now and then or something, that's because I was unprepared. But I do have those ones in my back pocket that I know that I can get that played relatively quickly, and I don't have to learn the rules for it. I can just set up and go.
Well, I mean, the nice thing with that is all those games are pretty dang popular, so I think people will still wanna check in for those.
Yeah.
I've got something like that too, where it's like the reviews, like, I know that game well enough that I could probably just spat out a review right now if I really wanted to, but I
Mhm.
don't know, I'll get to it down the road at some we'll see. I'm never at a lack of things to play, but I don't have to be playing them live like you do, so it's kind of a different situation. I don't have to worry too much about embarrassing myself.
Yeah, when I was doing reviews, they were always games that was familiar with quite
Mhm.
I was like, "Okay, I can sit down afterwards and I can, sit down for the couple hours it's gonna take to film this and not have a very minimal script, kinda like a couple jot points written down, but not thing like fully narrated, but I can have my jot points in my brain that I'm ready to go."
Right. Well, yeah. Yeah, well, that it works out well, so well, Ryan, do you feel ready to do battle about our not too controversial topic?
I'll have to let you know that when I was young, I did taekwondo, so I have that fighting spirit in me. I haven't
Okay.
done it in, like, 20 years, but I got the fighting spirit. Cue the eye of the tiger.
Yeah, I've heard about how you do in games where social manipulation is key. So, um, I may be taking on a bit more than I can handle. So, we'll see. All right. So, without further ado, let's get to the debate segment. And then okay, so we're now to our debate segment, and this time we're going to be debating whether or not the fantasy genre or the sci-fi genre makes for better board games. So I have strong
Mhm.
feelings. I have strong feelings. We'll see if I get to argue the side of my strong feelings or not.
Because I
But
don't think there's any games out there that fit either of these themes, really.
yeah, there might be one or two
There's maybe a
little
couple.
ones that no one's heard of. So all right. So I always randomize who gets what side and then what order we go in. And so we're going to both, once we have all that figured out, we're both going to give an opening statement. We're going to have a middle or rebuttal segment, and then we'll have our closing statement for this. And afterwards, we'll talk about how we really feel about this issue.
Mhm.
And if you're watching this, it is important that you go into the comments and let us know who you thought made the most convincing argument. You don't have to agree with the person. They just have to have been the best at arguing their point because we might not even agree with ourselves. Who knows? But it doesn't matter. And we won't be able to
Perfect.
sleep if you don't tell us. It's not, we're going to be very sad people. So you got to let us know. So, all
Do
right.
it. Hit it up.
So here's what I'm going to do. Through the magic of science, I am mirrored in my thing. So like, I don't know where to move anymore. So I have a randomizer here. And so what I'm going to do is if it comes up with an odd number, Ryan, then you are going to be arguing that fantasy is better. If it
Okay.
comes up with an even number, you'll be arguing that sci-fi is better. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. 8.
8.
Even. So you'll be
Even. So
arguing that sci-fi is better. Did I do that
alright.
right? Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Cool.
So then let's figure out our turn order. Okay. So if it is odd, Ryan, you'll be going first. If it's even, I'll be going first. Okay.
Okay.
Even. Okay.
Even.
So I'm going first. All right.
Easy peasy now.
All right. So I'm going to be arguing that fantasy is better. Okay. That's exciting. I wish there really was one game of each because then we could just argue about which one of those games is better. That'd be a lot simpler, to be honest with you.
Okay.
All right.
Cool. I got it. Okay, I got it.
All
I
right.
got it. Okay.
Okay. You ready?
Sure.
All right. So speculative fiction, right? That's the thing that these both fall under. Your fantasy, your science fiction, stuff that doesn't quite mesh with our current reality by either a large or small degree. Okay. So you have sci-fi, which if you're looking at movies, you're talking about like your Star Wars, Star Trek, that sort of thing. It's big popular stuff. Fantasy, you have your like Lord of the Rings and like Willow and whatnot. But there's a lot more games that fit into both of these areas, I think. Maybe. I haven't counted, but it seems like there's a lot more. We're going to say there's more. Now, Here's the thing, and this is going to sound a little odd, so bear with me here. Sci-fi ultimately is nonsense. It is, and I'll get to why in a minute. Fantasy, kind of nonsense, but it's based in something. Fantasy, believe it or not, is based in history. Now, I'm not saying there used to be dragons and wizards and all that stuff. Of course not. Let's be realistic. But people sure did seem to used to think that there were. There are legends of dragons and magic and all sorts of things that have gone back, as far back as we can look at ancient artwork and ancient writings and paintings on walls. Excuse me. To those people back in the day, these things, these crazy, powerful gods and monsters and great warriors, they were as real as the microphone in front of me. They could run into those things when they turned a corner, they at least thought. Now, probably they couldn't. I don't know. I'll leave that up to question, but probably not. But they perceived that they could. And perception is reality, and reality is history. Therefore, I feel I can say that fantasy is close to mirroring our own history and is therefore very realistic. Now, you might say, wait a minute, we have science. We're just taking science fiction. We're just taking the science and going to the future. I get it. I understand. Here's the thing. These crazy battles and spaceships and whatnot and lightsabers and plasma guns or whatever else, that's all really cool. It's never going to happen ever. It's so far out of reality. And here's 10,000 years in the future, it's not going to happen. Here's why. Okay. Let's take a sci-fi game that's not as far in the future, right? Like maybe in the next 50 years, you think we could probably get there, right? Let's talk about Terraforming Mars. This is a very popular game, right? A lot of people love Terraforming Mars, and you are doing exactly what the title says. You're going up, you're going to Mars, you're terraforming it, you're making it a livable planet. Okay? Stop, get your head out of the clouds. We can't even keep a planet that already is livable. Okay? We're not terraforming. Are you insane? We're not terraforming another planet. That's bonkers. We might go up there to try to mine for oil if we find out that's up there. Maybe. We're not terraforming it. We're not going to live there. It's not going to happen. We will never get that far. It's crazy talk. It's fun, crazy talk. Okay. But it's just not going to happen. Like flying a spaceship, that sounds cool. Until you think about it, it's just like billions of miles of just blackness. Boring. Go into a forest and run into a goblin or something. Exciting. That's cool. It is closer to humanity's actual experience, what it at least was, if not what it will be. Fantasy, clearly better than sci-fi. That's my opening statement.
Wow. Very compelling words.
Thank you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But on this end, oh, no, wait. I have to, no, wait. I'm not rebuttaling. Never mind. I'm bending the rules here.
It's okay.
Okay. So
sometimes it goes off the rails. It's okay.
That's right. So science fiction, let's just say it, that it is rooted in science. The things that are happening in science fiction can happen, and I argue will happen. Let's take a look at just recent history of a little well-known TV series referred to as Star Trek, where there is some technology that was introduced in Star Trek that now is actually, here in the now. I'm talking about things like our cell phones, being able to calm somebody without an actual tethered line. And I can call somebody. I can look anything up on the internet as we speak with my little cellular device. Something that was a concept that was introduced in science fiction that now has become a reality. So something like terraforming Mars, I don't think is far from that. And it is exciting to know that this is a possibility and that there are all these endless possibilities when we're talking about the world of science and expanding the universe beyond what we know currently. So there are possibly alien beings that are out there that probably look like the tree folk in Eclipse. Or there are some of those galaxies that are battling over a central place, like in Twilight Imperium. Lots of these things can happen, and I argue will happen. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but probably maybe even our kids or our grandkids' lifetimes, that these things are going to start exploding. Technology is advancing at a very rapid pace. And let's not forget, there are games out there all about expanding your technology and going up what we commonly refer to as tech tracks, and expanding that technology and what is possible. Our minds are our only limitations when it comes to the science fiction business. May I refer to Exhibit A, which is the Board Game Geek top 10 of all time, and they have, what, count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, count it, 4 games in the top 10 of all time that are science fiction based. Fantasy, however, even though it is a very popular genre made by, like, the Dungeons and Dragons people and the Lord of the Rings people, not taking away from them, but they have 1, 2, 3, and 2 of those games are essentially the exact same game. I'm just going to put it out there. So there is obviously a very much well loved and respect for the science fiction genre. Are we the number 1 game on the Board Game Geek top 10? Absolutely not. Not by a long mile. We are not the number 1, but we are the most represented in that realm. Now, fantasy. I get it. We all like to dress up and make pretend every now and then, and that's exactly what fantasy is living out our lives that we wish we had. But science fiction is exactly what's actually happening right now. And it is what's going to happen. And I love to be able to think of the what can happen, not the what if can happen. So science fiction is definitely the better theme for our games.
Those are some great points too. I can't deny it, but I can't argue against it. So, listen, you talked about like what had you put, like expanding our minds, like reaching the extent of
Going out there.
humankind's ability. Yeah. Okay. That all sounds amazing. So I'm gonna give you a little rundown of what it's like to play a sci-fi game. Not rules, because that could vary too much. Okay. I made up my empire, or maybe I'm just in my single spaceship. I'm gonna go to a planet. Oh, cool! It's a desert planet. All right, let's go to this other planet. Ooh, this one's water. Oh, this one's forested over here. Okay, look it. You're just going to different parts of a normal world. That's what you're doing, but you're having a lot more travel between them. That's it. If you play fantasy, you're going from a desert to some water to some forest. You just aren't traveling through billions of miles of nothingness to do it. And games make it faster, so that's great. My point is, fantasy is the true originator here. Sci-fi just takes what fantasy has and says, "Let's put a rocket on it." That's all they got. That's what they do. I mean, look at some of our big sci-fi things that we have out there. Okay, we have Star Wars. Awesome. Depending. I'm not trying to get into movies. We're not worrying about movies. The setting, right, for games. There's a lot of games in Star Wars, rightfully so. That's wizards in space. That's wizards in space fighting half the time things that look like fantasy creatures. What are those pig guys that are basically orcs? I don't know what they're called. Anyway, I mean, it's the same thing. Wizards in space. I hope you didn't hear my kid yell right now. Anyway, Warhammer 40,000. Dear God, could you be more fantasy in space? You literally have an orc army. You have psychic people who are just wizards in space. You have elves who are the Eldar. I mean, come on, man. Like sci-fi, there's like, hey, let's do fantasy, but stick in a rocket ship. I just, man, I sci-fi could be a lot of things, and I think in fiction sometimes it is, but in board gaming, you're just fantasy with more stars in the sky around you. That's really all it is. There's
Mm,
no real difference except for it's harder to relate to the people in the sci-fi world than it is in the fantasy world. Because I can imagine living with a little bit less technology. I can't imagine going through wormholes very well to get to a desert planet that I could just walk across my planet to get to a desert that's here. It's nonsense. I mean, I'm sorry, Ryan. Your points are
mm.
good ones, but ultimately, it's hard to argue the great things about sci-fi without saying, "Oh wait, yeah, that's actually pretty much just fantasy." And so that's my rebuttal to you. I just think, yeah, sci-fi is just fancy looking fantasy.
Can't can't I okay, you might have me on a few of those points. But I'm gonna come back to the actual gaming. And let's take a very popular fantasy style game, Terra Mystica. Spare, spirits, whatever you are, things, and magically, terraforming the planet around you so to make it more habitable and everything like that. Very cool, very awesome game. Then how come they had to put a science fiction twist on it to make it an even better game and rock it right up the Board Game Geek Hot 100, top 100 and everything like that? Because space was very more interesting. Those alien races were far more interesting and far more tangible than anything else. And being able to send a spaceship. Can you imagine a spaceship that comes and crashes into your planet and actually just like guts it and makes it more habitable? I can believe that happening before some magical wizards coming in, waving their hands and blah blah blah. Now I can inhabit this land type of thing. So one example where a science fiction game came out of a fantasy based game and was actually better. And of course, there's the tech tracks, like we said, can happen. Yes, science fiction may seem like you grabbed one instance of the Star Wars, which I believe are space wizards because they're moving things with their minds and everything like that, but they had a very scientific reason on why that, and why can't that exist in a galaxy far, far away from us at this moment in time and space and everything like that. Again, it's only just what can we imagine, and we can make that actually happen. There are NASA scientists and people at the Pentagon right now that are doing these very things and experiments that we will one day, maybe not in our lifetime, will actually make this a reality. Going and building a great big spaceship, like upgrading your spaceship. Like I'm talking about like a game like Eclipse, where I actually have to build up my spaceship to go and conquer something, or just be able to defend myself because that's not my style. And being able to, plasma cannons and rift thingamajiggers and opening up wormholes to other sides of the galaxy. That's not that's not far removed from reality. It's going to happen in our times, and these games are letting us explore that because we're not going to be able to experience it right now. But somebody's going to look like that game in 1,000 years and be like, "Wow, they were onto something. Let's make that happen," and they'll be able to make that happen.
Okay, well, all right. So, closing statements here. Excuse me. Now, I know ultimately this whole debate it can kind of come down to just being a matter of opinion, but I'm asking people to face reality for a minute. Ryan, I love everything that you're saying. I I would want nothing more than for you to be right to say that that's where we're headed, right? I would love that. But I mean, come on, man. Like, we're doomed. Like, the world is doomed. By the time we get that technology, we'll have long since fried in like our 190-degree weather. It's going to be over. So, here's what's going to happen. Humanity is going to be destroyed either by our climate issues, or we're going to like go to war, and maybe a few people will figure out how to survive that. And for a while, we're going to have this post-apocalyptic thing, which you could argue maybe is sci-fi. I would give you saying that post-apocalyptic, Fallout type stuff, we might get there. Okay, I could buy that. But eventually, all that technology is going to wear out. It's going to wear down. It's going to get rusted. We're not going to know how to do it anymore. We're not going to have the facilities to make it anymore. And what are we going to be left with? We're going to have to go back to the old ways. We're going to have to go back to swords and bows and whatnot. And why am I saying all this? This isn't about the world we live in exactly, but here's the thing. Do you want to have spent your time figuring out tactics to control a giant spaceship in outer space, to deal with other spaceships in outer space? Will that serve you in the world to come if you're one of the survivors? Or is it better to know how to like outflank people on a battlefield when you have a sword, when you have an ally who has a crossbow? And sure, the person you're fighting may not be an orc or an elf or whatever, but they may act like one. They may not have a dragon, but maybe they've gotten some other beast to do their bidding. And let's be honest, if it came to a hand-to-hand fight, it might as well be a dragon. I can't fight a bear. I mean, who knows? You got to be ready for this. You got to know what it takes. You have to think about your weaponry that you can actually have in your hands. You have to be ready for this. And the only way you're going to be ready is by taking your head out of the clouds, actually further than the clouds, out of the void, coming down to earth, thinking about your swords and your bows. If magic is a thing that can happen, you better figure that out too. It'd probably be really good. I can't promise that. These games, besides just being really, really fun, will be one step in training you in how to be a survivor and exist in the future. So my final point is this. Sci-fi is fun. It's neat. It's interesting. But so is fantasy. And unlike sci-fi, fantasy might just save your life. That's my closing statement.
Do you want to go literally where no man has gone before? That is what science fiction is trying to do for us. And being able to put those things into a more tangible way for us, which is a board game in this case, or a video game, and being able to go and explore those worlds that we can't physically explore right now, but we will be able to one day. Sure, you've got your fantasy games that could prepare you for things outside of, the game that you are playing. But let's remember, fantasy is you putting yourself in a situation that you would never have put yourself in before. And is that really going to help you in a situation that you like? If I go and encounter somebody, a bear, I remember fighting a bear when I was this level 33 dragon like tank mid-jigger, and I just crushed it. But now here I am face to face, and I can't actually do that now anymore because it was fantasy. It was make-believe. It made you feel good in the moment, but it was very short-lived. Whereas science fiction is giving you some hope and possibility of what is going to come. And it is going to come. If history does repeat itself, it is that our technology is going to keep advancing, and it's advancing at a much faster rate than it has ever been. And yes, we will advance it so fast that we will destroy ourselves in the process. And it'll be the ones that can manage the technology that will survive and take us to far off, distant galaxies, far, far away. And maybe run into those space wizards, and maybe they can help us, but maybe they're just in the midst of their own galactic empire battles. But It's not to say that it's not happening. It is happening somewhere, and we just have to get there. Not in our lifetimes, but it is going to be there, and I am excited for that. Science fiction over fantasy.
All right. That was great, man.
Oh my gosh, that was way harder than I ever thought.
It's so much fun. I absolutely love these ridiculous debates. I always go ridiculous arguments because it's just fun to me. But
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. And yes, many of our top games out there right now in the BGG top 100, m- like fantasy and science fiction are like outpacing all the rest of like the what is it, trading on the Mediterranean
Mhm.
and misery farms and, and all these
Right.
types of things, because these are the places that people want to explore.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I genuinely love both. I really do. Like,
Mhm.
admittedly, if there's a like, for instance, there's like Hero Realms and Star Realms, and I went with Hero Realms just because I do like fantasy a little bit better. But it's not like I would have been unhappy with Star Realms or been like, ugh, sci-fi, this sucks. That's not the case. But like when I play a game, it's part of it is to like escape
Mhm.
my reality for a short while. And not that
Yeah.
my reality sucks, but you know what I mean. Like you're getting away from some of the stresses of life. And to get somewhere like that, that is, not within reach for whatever reason. Um,
Mhm.
I think that's why I like both of those genres so much. You're more a sci-fi person, am I right?
Now, I remember us talking about this and saying, and yes, I do own lots of sci-fi games. I really gravitate towards a really good space theme. But if I was actually looking around my room right now, I do own quite a few fantasy, like high fantasy style of games,
Mhm.
and mainly because I am a sucker for a good campaign style
Oh
game, and
yeah.
there are not very many science fiction campaign games out there. I just recently acquired a few. Like I had got Stars of Akarios, which
Right.
is what people are referring to as Space Gloomhaven, and I can
Mhm.
definitely see the comparisons there. And I just recently got ISS Vanguard. The
Oh,
Kickstarter
cool.
fulfillment this just came in, and that's a heavily science fiction, very heavy Star Trek inspired type of thing, where you're just going from planet to planet trying to figure out this what to do, what to survive in that moment in time. But other than those two, I can't really think of a good sci-fi campaign style game. Everything's rooted in fantasy,
Yeah, that's kind
which
of
I
true. I
am
hadn't thought about that.
which I am all for, because I am a huge fan of Descent, Legends of the
Mhm.
Dark.
Right.
I have been a big Gloomhaven fan. I've played through Jaws of the Lion, and I've played through the full Gloomhaven campaign.
Wow.
Um, so I'm good. I'm a sucker for like anything Lord. If you put Lord of the Rings, like the journeys in Middle Earth, that Fantasy Flight Games is releasing, like that's awesome. Terra Mystica was a really fun game for me until Gaia Project came out and did it better.
Right.
I have to actually say that, but I do own quite a few fantasy. Actually, I do also prefer Hero Realms as opposed to Star Realms, and that's only
Oh,
because Hero Realms, surprise, surprise, introduced like those little mini campaigns that you could go on through some of
right.
them
Yeah.
some of their expansion stuff, which I thought was really cool. You could take on big boss monsters. That was really cool.
Yeah. 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 It's kind of weird. I was thinking about this, and I don't know if maybe I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So, um, if you say high fantasy to somebody, right? Like they know what you're talking about. You're talking about
Yeah, you're talking
wizards. There's probably elves. There's dwarves,
Dungeons and
dragons.
Dragons.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking about that. It is, it's your stock fantasy stuff. I don't know if there's really an equivalent in sci-fi that I'm aware of because I feel like the different groups all have different sets of aliens and
Mhm.
that sort of thing. I mean, am I
Like
wrong? Are there things that maybe I've missed that are like really common from one sci-fi thing to another or not?
from Okay, let's try this. There's always that faction that is like the artillery faction. Like
Right.
their whole purpose has always been war. There's always been somebody that it's always been war, and I'm out to conquest, and we're always burning through our planet's resources, and we're just going on to the
Mhm.
next planet to harvest their resources. There's always that thing that's going on. For some odd reason, there's always the plant people. There's always some
Yeah.
sort of people that were like always rooted in like their biology, which is more plantaceous than others. For some odd
I
reason,
like that
I
I like that you said rooted for them. That's perfect.
very non-intentional. I'm just by the means. Um, I'm just trying. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that were always. I'm trying to think of like your Twilight. There's some common factions between like Twilight Imperium and Eclipse
Yeah.
in that regard.
There's
But
always like that, like, really, like, super, like, analytical,
mm,
like, really aloof, like, super science
mm,
group, like, yeah.
yeah,
There's some stuff,
their
but
technology is so much farther advanced than anybody else's because of their high intellect type
right.
thing. And but yeah, I don't think it's as pronounced as in like fantasy,
Yeah.
the fantasy genre.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing. I don't know if you feel the same way, but, like, for me,
Oh,
like
I just
oh,
thought
yeah, go
another one.
yeah.
There's always like the robotic faction.
Oh,
Like
you
there's
gotta
always
have the
like
robotic people,
yeah,
yeah.
there's always the robots. And there's
Right.
like either the good robots or there's just the robots that are just out to destroy everything because um every other civilization is just doomed to destroy
Right.
themselves, and they're just the liberators.
Yeah, yep, there's those guys for sure. That's yeah, it's funny, yeah. So, I mean, there is some stuff, but, I mean, like, I don't know about you. So if I'm looking at some new fantasy or sci-fi game, right? And they have their own list of alien or yeah, group of aliens or what have you, like I'm not at all put off if none of those aliens look or seem familiar to me.
Mhm.
But if you give me something that's supposed to be like high fantasy and like all the, I mean, whether there's humans or not, all the ones who are not humans are like these bizarre things that I can't really almost tell on sight what they are. Like, it's almost a little off-putting to me, like, I want
Like
I
they're
don't mind
creating
having
their
some
own.
yeah, I don't mind having some stuff like that, don't get me wrong, but, like, if it's all like, "Oh, here's the dung beetle people, and here's" like, I don't know, like, whatever, the people who are giant air molecules, I don't know, whatever. It's kinda like, that's not what I'm here for in this
Mm.
genre, like, and I don't get that with sci-fi. I don't know, do you are you similar? Or I'm wondering if this is common across gaming or if it's just, like, a niche that I happen to be in.
Maybe because I am all about the weirder, the better type thing.
Okay,
If there's things that are far out there, like I'm the person that will go, "That's cool, that's original, would have never ever put those 2 things together." Type like I don't know if if they all of a sudden they started like smashing together like dragon orcs. Like
right,
that's something you really don't see very often. I say, "Hey, that's really cool." That's why I really like enjoy Root, the game Root,
right,
because of these fantasy woodland creatures that are all fighting amongst each other, and they were like, you know, the mice versus the cats versus the birds versus the otter, and then all of a sudden there's otters, and then there's lizards, and then there's moles, and like they started picking like animals that were not ones that you would actually think about that were fighting one another. I thought that was
right.
actually really that's one example that I thought was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, no, I could see that. Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thing. I don't hear people, maybe because sci-fi could be so different, like, I hear people who are just like, "Oh, I don't like high fantasy, period." Like, they're
Mm,
done with dwarves and whatnot, like, they don't wanna see that, who are not at least I don't hear them ever talk about the same thing about sci-fi, even though you can make some of those parallels.
mhm.
I don't hear a lot of people being like, "Well, I don't want one of these things with, like, the warlike aliens and shooting lasers out of ships," and, like, I just never hear that. It's kind of an interesting thing to me, and I don't know I don't know why.
Yeah, where I'm always paying attention if I'm watching a new science fiction type thing. I'm always the quick to point out, like, oh, yep, here comes the big bad guy. They're calling them the big bad because they're the ones that are
Right,
conquesting and rah rah rah. And we need to go recruit the help of the high intelligent people and get their technology so that we can defeat the big bad guy.
right.
It does seem like some of those tropes do get quite repetitive, time to time.
Yeah, yeah. So, It sounds like we both have some love for both genres, whichever one
Mhm.
we prefer. I'm wondering if there is one thing that we can fully agree on, though. I'm curious. Um, I'm gonna say this, and you can tell me whether you agree.
Okay.
Both of these genres are so much better than steampunk, in my opinion.
I have
Are you
not I have never really fully explored anything like any stories, movies, source material, whatever you wanna call it. I've never really ever explored the steampunk, um, can I say mythos or anything like that? I don't, because I
I
don't even
I
know.
know what you mean.
Yeah. I have never explored it, and so therefore I really kind of, yeah, get I get it. It is something that could possibly happen if we just if people did harvest the power of steam and be able
Mm,
to invent new technology, but at the same time, that's not really how it works. They made up some new physics, then allowed it to actually work. It doesn't actually work that way.
yeah. I always felt like, steampunk was kinda like if you had like a ballot that people had to vote on, and you had sci-fi or fantasy, and there would be one box for undecided. That's where you get your steampunk people.
There we go.
That's steampunk.
I would agree with that statement.
I'm not actually against steampunk, but I'm also not like I don't gravitate towards that one. I
I
just don't know
have
about that.
one I have one steampunk game in my collection of, like, almost 400, and that is the Roxley Games Steampunk Rally, because
Okay.
the game is so interesting. It's a racing game for one thing,
Hmm.
and it's all about building these wacky contraptions and trying to get it over the finish line before your opponents, and everything's activated with dice. Like, you have to build up this contraption and start activating compartments, and compartments are blowing apart and blowing off, and you have to add more things to keep it going. And that's the only steampunk game that I've been. So take my word. I don't know. Give me a good fantasy themed game like Descent or Gloomhaven or something along those lines. That's why I'm really, really interested in Stars of Akarios
Right.
right now, because it kind of takes that campaign like system, going on an epic voyage, upgrading my ship along the way. ISS Vanguard, upgrading your crew's getting experience and getting more knowledge by the alien technologies that you're discovering on all these planets to make them better, and upgrading your ships to go on. It just sounds really, really cool, and it's got a really good story. Lots of these science fiction games are really lacking. Like, there's lots of
Mm,
good science fiction movies and stories out there, but it hasn't been incorporated in a game. And I think ISS Vanguard's been the best one so far that's incorporating a really good science fiction story into it. And it's like something really far out, because the whole thing's based off of some sort of scientist realized that there's some sort of hidden message in our human DNA, and
oh
everybody
wow.
has this exact same message. And now they've finally managed to found out where in the galaxy this message is sending them. And now you ran into something big, bad, and evil.
Oh wow. That's kind of
And
cool. I didn't know that was a backstory. Oh
and and
wow.
and and that and that that's where the story starts when you start playing the game.
All right. Well,
See,
I want to hear what
that story is already way more interesting than some of the stuff that I've been watching lately.
yeah. Yeah, it could go that way. When you've gotten into those, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on both because I didn't end up backing either of them. I remember looking at both, but they're both big games. I probably just couldn't do it at the time, but
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts on them because yeah, they sound really neat.
Yeah. Stars of Icarios, I only ended up getting because somebody locally was selling their edition for like a really stupid discount, like
Mm,
discounted price. They were just getting out of just wanted to get it out of their house. And I just, right place, right time, clicked, yep, I'm getting that one.
right on.
Or else I
It-
probably wouldn't have it because it was a big, expensive Kickstarter,
yeah,
like they always are. But
it's painful.
ISS Vanguard, I've got a feeling that this thing's going to be, once I fully explore it, it's going to be something special.
Right.
I got a funny feeling about that.
Yeah, I certainly haven't. I don't think I played the majority of their game. That's Awaken Realms, right?
It's Awaken Realms game, yeah.
Yeah, they always seem to put together some good stuff, like especially narratively. I think they do a
Mhm.
really awesome job usually. So
Yeah,
I
Tainted
think it'll be great.
Grail was a fantastic fantasy. That's another one that was a fantasy, genre that
Mhm.
put a twist on that Arthurian legend. Kinda
Right.
put a twist on it, which was actually really, really neat and cool. They also did, Nemesis,
Oh
which
yeah,
is
yeah,
like a really oh, I guess that's a that oh, why didn't I think of that one? That was a really good example of a good science fiction game that I could've made with my
yeah,
arguments,
yeah,
but they just ripped off the IP of Alien.
yeah. I mean, but they did it good though. So
Oh, they did it better than what anybody could make an Alien game. They
yeah,
did it better than any of those.
it certainly caught on more. I mean, well, I really like the Alien Fate of the Nostromo. That's a good one, but it's also a much. It
Mm.
doesn't have the same feel as you probably like. Nemesis comes a lot closer to catching the feel of being in that situation. I think with the because it's super deadly.
I'm
Oh,
coming face to face with an alien, and I have no idea. I am not equipped to deal with this. I am most likely gonna die facing
right.
this thing face to face. I have to find some sort of corridor to duck into or get away from it somehow. So,
Yeah.
like, capturing that feeling.
Yeah. Well, they did it. They did a good one on that one. All right. Well, we should probably get to the end of this thing. We're both worn out from saying crazy things about sci-fi and fantasy.
Whew.
But Ryan, if people want to see and hear more from you, where can they find you?
So the main place that they can find me is every Tuesday and Thursday evenings on YouTube. Just search up Mr. Rau Gaming. I'm going live every Tuesday and Thursday nights. I've been trying to do it at I advertise it in Pacific time, so 7:30 Pacific time right now, which might change once daylight savings hits here, but
Mhm.
I'll try to work that out. And they can also find me over on Twitter. I'm most active, but I do have a Facebook page and a Instagram account, and everything's at Mr. Rau Gaming, and that's MistaRau Gaming.
Well, there you go. Definitely follow them both places. I never get a chance to watch live. I just timing never seems to work. There's so
Yeah,
many people that stream things that I want to watch live, and I just can never seem to do it. But even if you don't catch it live, it's worth checking up on after the fact. So, and
yeah.
you'll get to
Everything
see
releases video on demand. Probably about is it's about the day after. Probably about 12. Yeah, it's been about 12, 15 hours after the stream ends. Everything comes live.
right on. So yeah, yeah. So even if you miss it, you haven't completely missed it. You can get in there
Hmm.
and see all the fun that's going on there. So I guess with that being said, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you put in the comments which one of us won that debate. Um, there have been a few that I've done that have gotten no votes. I think one that I've won and a couple that I've tied on. But I want to have like a lot of people tell me that way we can be sure that it's not just some weird fluke. Like, oh well, like the two people who happen to vote, you know, picked different people.
Hmm.
I need more folks. Me and Ryan have to get this situation settled.
I'm gonna pump this out to my supporters. I'm gonna pump this one out, and the Mr. Owl heads out there of the world are gonna definitely come out science fiction. I think it.
We'll see.
I
We'll
got.
see. I think they will see my arguments to be like, you know what, I like Ryan, but
No, no,
we'll see.
David was pretty convincing this time around. He was way more prepared than I was.
I'm always thinking about sci-fi and fantasy, but no, I thought you did fantastic too. So anyway, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you can know about the next time I put out a video. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you all around the table again at All Games New and Old. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
If you enjoyed that video, you might also like this one.
Or this one.
If you like any of our videos, what you should do is click this little button to subscribe so you'll know about the next time we put out a video.
We'll see you around the table.
Bye.
Bye.